Hey guys, thank you for joining us today on the Big Oak Land Podcast. Today we're going to be joined by Island 34's Ruste Via. We're going to be discussing farming for waterfowl. Is it baiting? Is it farming? I don't know. But I want to talk about standing corn and the political influence it's had and the discussions that it's brought as of late. Also, we're going to be joined by one of our agents, Holt Blackwood. Holt Blackwood runs a fine operation for express boats and also represents Alabama, Arkansas, and Mississippi. Thank you for tuning in. Rusty, my name's Robert Dudley. I'm on Big Oak Land Realty here uh, in the Southeast, and we represent Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, and Arkansas, and we are on the verge of moving into Florida and Tennessee and Louisiana and Texas, hopefully this coming year. And I know that you have had a passion for land and what you have been doing there at Island 34. Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your background, and introduce yourself for our listeners.
I can do it. My name's Ruste Via. I guess I was a wildlife biologist by degree. I graduated UTK in 1996 and worked in wildlife, primarily in wetlands and wetland restoration for 4 years, 4 or 5 years there. I was the biologist for the wetland biologist for West Tennessee. Um, Actually probably think for more like 20. I think there's 19 counties in West Tennessee, and I think I was over 25 or 30 counties back then, but primarily we worked in the Delta and along Tennessee River and, in the WRP program and some of the tributaries that run into the Mississippi from West Tennessee. So I was responsible for the restoring a lot of wetlands during that time frame, and simultaneously my job was to design and oversee the implementation of or the construction of waterfowl impoundments for Ducks Unlimited, for private landowners for Ducks Unlimited. And that was actually 50% of my job, going out surveying the property, laying out, trying to figure out, how much area we could flood that was duck use water, which I consider 18 inches or less, primarily. Now we're talking about dabbling ducks. We're not trying to manage down here for divers, but nonetheless, I did that until uh, 2001 or so. Left the field and for 20 years and went into just went into medicine, is the simplest way to put that. But ended up selling my companies in 2021 and bought the island and got to get back to little habitat management, which I've always enjoyed and whatnot. So that's a good quick summary right there.
Tell us, what time did you acquire Island 34 there?
Time of the year?
No, what year did you acquire Island
Oh, in
34?
2021. Sorry,
Okay.
same year that I sold.
Yes, sir. Tell us a little bit about the significance of the name of Island 34 and how that is placed. I've read, all my life about the islands up and down the Mississippi through, um, life on the
Well,
Mississippi and
I'd hired a guy to help me find a piece of property that was within um, 3 hour drive of the house that we could, and I say we, I'm talking pretty much my family, that we could deer hunt, turkey hunt, duck hunt, kind of had a all things inclusive on the property. Um, and we looked around and ended up finding Island 34. And that's when I started doing research on Island 34 and then names, why is it numbered? And the best that I can tell, somewhere around the first 5 years of 1800, between 1801 and 1804, uh, the military had asked a surveyor to survey the Mississippi River. Apparently, every culture in the day, the American Indians, which we were still fighting and whatnot, but um, French and white folks, we all had different names for the same place. And that guy said, "Forget this. We're gonna number these islands because you'd have multiple cultures talking about the same place, but had a different name for it." So he just numbered them, and he numbered them from Cairo, Illinois, uh, to my knowledge, all the way to the Gulf. Some of those islands no longer exist. That's if you look on a current map, you'll see. I'm just making something up here. It'll skip 2 or 3 and go from like island 18 to island 21 or something along those lines because 19 and 20 are no longer there. But island
People don't
34,
realize that the Mississippi River is such a thoroughfare, and really back in the uh, golden years or the early years of the country, it was really the main thoroughfare that divided east and west, and what really ran through the heartland to the Gulf, and really is kind of the belly button of the country now. Um, there's a lot of water that moves through the Mississippi River, and I think a lot of people are misunderstanding that it's not your normal river.
no,
It
it's
is,
not a normal river. I
and
think
it's always changing. And when he talks about the islands disappearing, it's a lot of erosion and alluvial, and a lot of accretion there at times, and you can gain and lose land respectfully each year in some cases, can't you?
that's right. Well, I think really before the Corps of Engineers, got a hold of it in the 30s, um, 20s and 30s. Somebody can fact check me on this, but there used to be an old saying that river would change course once every 10 years, every 40 miles. Uh, you know, and if you think about the log jams and things along those lines that you had back in the day, um, it didn't take much to for logs to dam up, and when you start getting just a little bit of an impoundment on that many cubic feet of water, uh, and it wants to go somewhere, well, it's going to go somewhere else if it gets dammed in any shape, form, or fashion. And since the core, we don't have near those changes much anymore. Of course, we had some floods, huge floods, but it was very volatile back in the day. To look at one of those old maps, color-coded maps, where you see, I guess, the historic pathway of the Mississippi, really it's the Mississippi, the Ohio, and the Tennessee. The Tennessee River runs in Ohio, and which runs into the Mississippi just north of here. And I'd say, 75 miles as a crow flies, maybe 100, but that shaped the Arkansas Delta, and what little Tennessee has of the Delta, it shaped it too. But yeah, that river was volatile. It moved around a lot.
Tell me a little bit about how you got started there, and what your objectives are, and what drew you to Island 34. What was with your background and being a wildlife biologist and working with Ducks Unlimited, what drew you there? The habitat?
Well, it was a number of things. When I bought this place, I was really looking for something that, you know, I could retire on at some point in time. I say retire, place where my grandkids, which I don't have any yet, but where they go hunt with Pop. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Go set up in the deer stand with Granddaddy and whatnot, and we just have a little wildlife mecca where the deer on the island are large. They're in good shape. They got abundant food. The river and river floods are the only thing that really messes with them. There's very little hunting pressure here. Obviously, I have a big enough area that we don't exude any hunting pressure, but even then, around the island, there's not a lot of hunting pressure, mainly due to accessibility. It's just not that accessible. Um, and The turkey population is great. And so when I bought the place, I was thinking more along those lines. But it wasn't developed for waterfowl, and so but it was primarily developed by the previous landowner for agriculture. It had always been farmed. I think around 1,200 acres of the 2550 that we have was could have was put in agriculture at least over the last 50 years or so. There was very little of it. They flooded. Well, I'm gonna go back. They stepped back. They precision leveled it.
Mhm.
almost all of they at least precision leveled 1,000 of the 1,200 acres that were farmed. When I say precision level, they put a slight slope on it where basically everything could be irrigated through polypipe irrigation and so on, which it turned a good profit, and this is fertile ground, and but it hadn't been developed for waterfowl. And I looked at all these flat fields, and knowing that we have the Lower Hatchie National Waterfowl Sanctuary is right across the Mississippi River. uh, I thought that maybe we could do a little bit more, and that came to um, that epiphany came pretty much in December of 2021. I had bought it in November of 2021. We had a closing date, you know, several months in advance. Uh, so they knew I was going to purchase the property from them, and I asked them if they would go ahead and flood. Uh, they typically would flood 30, 40 acres a year. Um, for themselves to hunt on. This older gentleman that owned it, he called them his clients, uh, Mr. James Woodard. Um, they only flooded 34 acres, and they'd go out and kill their limit and come back. So I'd asked the manager here on the island if he would to go ahead and flood those, and he did that, 30, 40 acres. And I was focused on deer when we bought it because my kids were younger. I've been a glorified dad guide for 15 years, you know, pretty much taking my kids anywhere they wanted to go as far as deer hunting or when they wanted to go deer hunting and whatnot. So I was focused on trying to get deer stands set up and whatnot, being right around the rut by the time we closed on the place. And so I didn't start thinking about the ducks till mid-December, but we had these flooded up since November, these few spots. And man, we got to noticing the ducks piling in there and piling in there. About mid-December, I'm like, man, we need to start getting some duck hunts in. And long story short, we almost couldn't shoot them out of these holes. They just kept coming with little food there. I mean, it was just to this day, I don't know why they would want to land in these places. That we had a little bit of food, but not much. The farmer harvested all the crops, and all we were left with was soybeans, which is not that good for a duck in the first place. Um, but anyway, we couldn't shoot them out, and that's when my mind started turning. Uh, like, man, if this 30, 40 acres is that good, I wonder what 400 could do. And so we started looking at developing it for waterfowl. And that's the route that we started in in 2022.
So when you initially saw these holes, are these natural holes, or were they breaks, or were you hunting timber, or was it just potholes on the island, or
We were hunting.
coves, or what was it actually?
It was wetter ends of the fields that had grown up in some, like, you might have 30 or 40 yards of willow thicket, bordering a field. Um, where the field did run all the way through that willow thicket, but let's just say for whatever reason it was too wet for several years. They kind of grew up in willows, and the farmers just backed off of it 30 yards. And so you had some crop field with some willows, and we would just stand in the edge of those willows and shoot them as throw out a couple dozen decoys. So effectively, we were almost timber hunting, but not in the middle of the timber, but hunting on the edge of the timber, right on the edge of these ag fields where the mallards would use it, and basically every type of duck was using those fields.
For those that aren't big waterfowlers, explain to them the importance of having the proper wind, and your place must lie for a good winter to huntability and wind. You've got to have the two to really make it work.
Well, motion in your decoys is probably the most important factor that you have in duck hunting. Obviously, these are my opinions, but I like to have at least 30% of my decoys moving in some shape, form, or fashion, whether it's a jerk string or some of these new motion decoys. The swimmers or pulsators. I call them butt spitters, but anyway, with the wind, sometimes, like, a lot of these woods lots were not or the end of these fields weren't in line with what I would call perfect wind conditions, you know. But for a duck's always going to land in the wind, even though he might take a hard turn at the last minute. He's still going to pitch into the wind, and so you want to set your blinds up where the predominant winds are if you're going to hunt blinds. And even if you're in the standing timber, you want to hunt, you know, the direction where the ducks are pitching into your face, so to speak. Um, that gives everybody that's in that hole the opportunity to shoot at a duck. But of course, you know, 50% of the time that doesn't work out that way. You got a north wind, a south wind. Left or right's not bad. You just don't want them pitching. You don't want the wind in your face. If the wind is hitting you in the face, that may be good for deer hunting. It would not be good for duck hunting. That means the ducks are pitching over your head and landing out away from you. Um, it'd be like these ducks
I,
behind my hat right here pitching over my head, but they're never that close. You know what I mean?
yes, sir. I love it too. I grew up hunting. I was 10, 11 years old. I hunted around Wheatley and Brinkley, Arkansas, with a family there, the Clifton family. They're farmers and rice farmers, bean farmers, and they have always catered to me and helped me through the years. And we've traded hunts back and forth, coming to Alabama to deer hunt, and I go to Arkansas to hunt with them and through the Delta. And that's something that I was always amazed about, was them being in the off season. They were professional guides, and how important your setup is. And it's more than just having ducks. You know, that's part of the equation, but another is your setup. And then it's something I like to call the whole dynamics, or the committee within the blind, and the politics of how we're going to change it around. And it seems like when you get the shell game right and get everything corrected, you get sweaty and you get back cold again. And it seems like the first way you had it set up would have been better than the way it ended up. You know what I'm talking about
I know
exactly. And if
exactly.
any of you
For
are
you,
hunters, you know the same thing.
but for the non-duck hunters listening to you, what he's talking about is the fact that we always second guess the decoy placement. That's what we do. We if the ducks look like they're flaring off something, we move the decoys, even though it might be Roger's face over to the right, sticking out of the blind. We end up moving the decoys more than once a day, and after
People
you
don't
got there and do
understand
all
that
that,
those politics are more, the inner politics in a blind are more dynamic sometimes than they are Washington, D.C.
oh, for real, it's funny because you argue about it. No, that decoy is fine. No, leave it on. Now they're not pitching at all. You know, it's a good time. It's good to have your friends in there. That's for sure.
One thing that I think that is the talk now, or I hear amongst the waterfowling community, is, you know, you set up, your setup is one part, your gear and your technique is another. But what are some other things you can do to better your odds? I know that there are programs in place for years and there's a lot of talk back and forth about with DU and things that they have done with nesting and things that they have done. I can remember saying, you know, as I've watched farming and hunting in the Delta, that they say it's moving more back. The flyway is moving back more to the east, and you know, everybody has their own, you know, prognostication or pontification about what is actually going on. And I don't think that everybody is entitled to their opinion, but I think that there are things that you can do personally to better your odds through farming for ducks. Talk to us about what your approach was at Island 34 and what you try to instill in your help there, and what your goals are in that aspect.
Well, there are two things that a person could do um, that would definitely help the duck hunting on that piece of property. It's just most people, for whatever reason, don't want to do it. And the number one thing I think to get ducks thinking about your property before they ever take off from up north and they're heading south, wherever your property is, is allowing the ducks to imprint on that piece of property, having some habitat there, some food, um, and whatnot, for them to munch on and be unharassed. I think pretty much all the research nowadays, especially with the GPS trackers and whatnot, it focuses on pressure and how much pressure are being put on the ducks during daylight hours, and you know, it doesn't matter how much food you have out there. If you're hunting that hole every dadgum day, no duck is going to get to use it to utilize the food supply for one. But they're wanting to. If they do, they're going to utilize it 100% at night, and you're not going to have as many opportunities during the day. But you need to allow the ducks to imprint. What we did on the island is this is the 4th year, and this is the let's see, this is the first time that we pretty much we hunted 10 days out of the last 14 for ducks. Before this, we never hunted more than 6 days the whole year, every year. And so we provided abundant food, as much food as I could possibly put out there on the ground for the ducks, and we left them alone. And we built up a huge population of waterfowl. If you want to think about it, it was basically, for all intents and purposes, a private refuge. I wanted to do just what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service would do when they bought a piece of property, or turned a piece of property into something. Now, I didn't have standing water or wetlands. You just don't. You have some wet areas for sure on the island, but you got sandy soils. There's just not a lot of standing water year round, no matter what you do. And so we didn't have any swamps or big cypress thickets or anything like that to manage. Now we had some areas that we would plant some food in the woods and whatnot, but the biggest thing that we wanted to do is allow the ducks to imprint. That's the first thing that a person can do on their property, and if it's even if it's just a couple of acres, it's if you hunt it every day, you got to start asking yourself, why does a duck want to land in front of you? Well, I can answer that question here because of imprinting. They've been coming here for years and not been shot at. That's why. And and they had food and cover when they got here. And so to me, that's the number one thing anybody anywhere could do to improve the hunting on their property. The second thing that they could do that they don't often do either is allow the water to stand after season. There's a lot of reasons why you can't. You don't own the land, you're leasing the land, the farmer wants it off, immediately, those type things. I'm if that's the case, it's out of your control. But if you do have control of it, leave that water on that property until you have to drain it. And we have been leaving water. There's some water in some pockets, especially the timber that's there till June. All the wood ducks are even done nesting by the time the water eventually soaks into the ground or runs off. We'll leave our ag fields that we have planted. We have left water as long as April the 7th, but people keep focusing on having water while they're duck hunting. But again, it allows for a lot more time of the ducks being able to utilize your particular farm without having any pressure on them. If you pull the water, if you leave the area because you're no longer duck hunting, duck season's not in, but water stays on there another month. If you can at least leave out water till March 15th, I think over time, you'll see ducks using them, because when ducks are flying back north and they see a piece of habitat, because at that point they're feeding on a lot of things differently, especially the hens. They're looking for protein, the aquatic invertebrates that are in the water, because we got warmer temperatures. The more biomass you have in the water, the more aquatic invertebrates you're going to have in that water. And so that's what they're nibbling on in that real shallow water and making, your field look all muddy in that 2 to 3 inches of water. They're feeding on aquatic invertebrates that have gotten in there. And people just don't think about that, but that it's still in that duck's mind that, hey, I'm on this piece of property, and I'm not being harassed, uh, even though it's, February the 28th, I'm on a piece of property. And then that might be a place that he looks for coming back south next year.
It's just like this, if you go to the beach every year or you make an annual trip and you know your route, well, if you're going down the interstate and you gotta pull off, do your business, and you see a sign that says, "Hey, remember last year we stopped down there at that Buc-ee's? It's about 12 miles from here. You gonna stop in at the Travel Lodge?" You say, "Well, you see that Buc-ee," and you get the general consensus from the car, and they say, "Well, I reckon I can hold it. We get on down to Buc-ee's again," because
Yeah,
they remembered how good it was
that's
when
a
they
great
stopped in there
analogy.
last
That
year.
is a great analogy. I mean, that's exactly right, man. I mean, why do you think ducks go to refuges? They remember them. They know
Yeah.
they know they're there. They know they don't get harassed, even though there might not be the food supply in a lot of these refuges that used to be. Um, uh, and that's why they remember them. They get to go in there. There's some habitat. There's some cover, and that's what they're looking for.
Well, we'll change it. They say, "Well, hey, we'll just get on down there to Rusty's. We'll be all right."
I want them thinking about my place when they take off from the Dakotas or the Prairie Pothole region, anywhere up there. I want them thinking about my farm, and they want to stop here. And I feel like um, I've done as good a job of that as I can. I don't think I could have improved upon that anymore.
Let's talk about some of the techniques and things that you have implemented in a traditional sense, but also with your background, what you have maybe taken an approach that others wouldn't, but you see it uniquely through your perspective. What have you done that is uncharacteristic that most others would do farming for ducks?
Uh, Uncharacteristic.
I mean, you doing something outside of the box that others don't, or something that is kind of your
Well, the biggest
unique to
thing
you,
the
your
biggest
quip.
thing is not hunting. I mean, a lot of people don't have a lot of options. Let's say they might have one piece of property they can go to duck hunt, and there's that urge to hunt it, every day, every other day, and you can kill some ducks there as long as you got water in front of you. But it's never going to be as good as it can be um, if you allow the ducks to come in there and feed and be unharassed for a while. Again, Dr. Brad Cohen out of Tennessee Tech and Dr. Osborne, I think those guys. They're the ones that have been putting the GPS collars on the back of these ducks and watching them migrate. I mean, they'll tell you right now that pressure um, has uh, almost as much effect on how many ducks you're killing, if not more so than anything else. And
It's the same goes with my background. My passion is turkey hunting, and it seems to me, it sounds to me at least that it's all about limiting pressure on particular places and being able to hold off to another day if you can.
yeah, and I'm not, I understand if you want, you don't have that option. The question though was not, do you have the option? The question was what can you do to make your place better? And that's something that you can do. If you have the ability to do it, I think you should do it. You should leave the water on there as long as possible. Um, I mean, I've had ducks here. I've had 30 to 40,000 ducks still on the farm that left the farm and came back, you know, uh, March 30th. People just aren't thinking about ducks March 30th. They're thinking about turkeys. And, but I've had that many ducks here at that point in time.
We were talking earlier in our introduction, I think, before we were rolling. Tell us a little bit about the success of your season. What kind of results did you have, and how many bands were taken? And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we duck hunted the last 10 days or 10 days of the last 14 of the duck season. So I think somewhere around the 16th, 15th of January, we started duck hunting and we would duck hunt 3 days or so in a row and then skip a couple of days and then hunt again. So um, we we took some veterans on a hunt, and most people that know me do know that we enjoy taking veterans, and I always try to leave the place kind of in a virgin type situation till they get here every year, and we killed 169 ducks in 3 days. It was awesome. Ended up with 3 or 4 bands during that time frame, and um, my son even got to come up and guide some of these guys. We had one um, double amputee on the leg, one above the knee, one below the knee, and then another gentleman in a wheelchair. His name's Christian. Christian got sick and had to go home early, but enjoyed having him here. We developed 3 waterfowl pits specifically to handle wheelchairs. As far as I know, these are the only waterfowl pits in the world. Now, there are plenty of duck blinds that are wheelchair accessible, but not pits that go on the ground. We ended up putting uh, truck lifts in these things, for lack of a better term.
Like a
Um,
Tommy gate,
uh,
like a Tommy gate you'd see on the back of a reefer trailer or
no,
delivery
these are
truck.
10,000-pound lifts.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
Not that. Basically, there's hydraulic lifts we put under the bottom, kind of built the floor up a little bit higher, and gave them room to go under there. And I mean, I think the platform itself weighs 3,000 pounds. On some on a couple of them. But they're made to handle those track wheelchairs that they can pull in. And on 2 of them, I put turntables where the guys could actually grab the rim of the pit and kind of turn themselves like we would if a duck was coming in, kind of behind us or off to the right or to the left. Give them as much flexibility as you possibly can give them in, being confined to a wheelchair.
It says a lot about you, Rusty, that you take the time to do that. And if those of you that are listening, it takes a special person to do it. But when the setup is very important when you try to accommodate these individuals that gave so much that we
Yeah.
often take for granted. But one thing that I think really enhances their experience is giving them the best flexibility and mobility within their limitations, if that makes sense to you, Russ. You understand what I'm saying?
No, they just won't be one of the
Give them
boys,
the most unique experience, natural experience that they could reminisce and enjoy and forget about the circumstances that they're in at that current time.
That's right. And just be with your boys again, in a duck blind. And that's as much of them getting back to normal as possible. Normal for them is, being with other veterans and talking about the good old days. And like I said, just BSing around, messing with each other. And that is constant. It's enjoyed for me to sit back and watch. And so, anyway, we do what we can for those guys. In my opinion, especially somebody that you know has had, and when a life altering injury. I mean, you can have that mentally as well, but and I'm talking about losing a limb, losing a leg, losing an arm, hand, eye. Um, um, I mean, it affects everything you do, and these guys, some of them, were tier 1 operators, former Navy SEALs, Delta Force Rangers, and and now they got to ask you for help. That's not what they want to do, and so we try to make it where they don't have to ask for help nearly as much as they would otherwise. So we want them to, like you said, be free to just be in there and get around and move around and however they want to, and just again be one of the boys again. So, but
That's what people take for granted is our normal is we take it so much for granted, and they find emotional peace in just getting back to feeling normal.
exactly. I mean, they ain't been normal since that happened, and some of them haven't been normal since they got back. Either from a PTSD, standpoint. Just trying to get back some normalcy in their life as much as possible is good. And if outdoors being outdoors, hunting and fishing was as big a part of their life as it was mine. I can't imagine having that taken away from me and what that would do to me. It would
Mhm.
do, uh, you know, more damage than the fact that I lost a limb. I mean, psychologically, it would just, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I couldn't get outdoors. I mean, I think I'd walk out there on my hands. Uh, Christian, he was the gentleman that was in his wheelchair, and he's a big fella. I mean, he's stout. I walked in his room the first morning, kind of wake him up, and he had his CPAP machine on, and he looked like, what is it, Bane from Batman? He had full arm sleeve tattoos and shoulders that
Uh-huh.
big around, and I was like, brother, I think I'm just gonna let you sleep, and I don't know if I want to wake you up or not, but anyway, he was like, I run around on these arms a lot, so that's why they're good size.
Mhm. Well, they're all good people, and it's good to see those that can overcome and adapt, but
Yeah,
it's something that we know nothing about the things that they're going through.
that's correct. And if I
Anything we
just
can
have
do
one,
to help them.
exactly. If that's what I was gonna say. If there's something that y'all can do, somebody can do, to help those guys out, I would ask you to do that. And I don't mean just giving to a charity. I mean actively get involved. Um,
You'll
take up
find
that
fulfillment in giving back. At the
a
time,
hundred
you
percent.
your time goes a whole lot further than your money does in a lot of respects.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't want to just donate to charities and not get to know the people I was helping. And I wanted to develop a relationship with them, hopefully a long term relationship where we're coming to birthday parties and things like that. You know what I mean? And if they live nearby, but I just wanted to invest in somebody. There's that old saying about two men walking down the beach, and uh, they were in an area where starfish had just washed up by the tens of thousands, and one guy's just bending down, picking up that starfish and throwing it back, and with 10,000 other ones laying on the beach. So the other guy just turned around and asked him, he said, why are you doing this? You're wasting your time. It doesn't matter. And he said, well, it mattered to that one. That's what we're called to do, I think, as people that uh, didn't go to war, didn't uh, fight those battles, and certainly didn't get injured doing it. I think we got to give back, because it's up to me. They would never spend another dime in their life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Rusty, while we were having that discussion, I had a good friend of mine slip in that helps me at Big Oak, and he actually y'all share a lot of similarities and backgrounds and what you do. Holt Blackwood is from Gaston, Alabama, and he represents Mississippi and or Arkansas, and fixed to be representing Mississippi. And tell us a little bit about your background and what you do, Holt.
Good morning, Robert.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Rusty, how you, sir?
Hey, man,
Uh,
I'm good. How are you, brother?
I'm good. Glad to be here. Glad to be here. So I've got about 16 years managing private properties in Arkansas. Um, I've got a wildlife and forestry degree from Auburn. Been in Arkansas, like I said, for 16 years, managing year-round private properties for waterfowl. We do the deer as well, but waterfowl is kind of what we specialize on. I currently work for Express Boats, manage their private farm in Carlisle, Arkansas, and then I run a outfitter business called Briar Patch Outfitters, and I run that out of Brinkley, Arkansas. So I'm right there in eastern Arkansas. Just we rice farm is our number one farming activity, and then we do some moist soil management. But everything we do is for the ducks. So I know Rusty, you're up there, kind of on the Mississippi River, a little
Yep.
north east of us. But we're all right there in that general area. Do real estate for Robert. Like Robert said, I'm a Alabama agent and an Arkansas agent. So I get to kind of have my hands on a lot of different interesting, fun properties out there. Uh, Enjoy it, love it. Like I said, I've been doing it for the last 16 years. So,
Holt's just coming off how many days this season? 60 straight?
Well, it wasn't 60 straight. I've got kids and a wife, so they gotta remember who I
Hopefully you took
am.
Christmas
But
off anyway.
yeah, well, I did. I did take Christmas off, but I'd say it was a good 40-45 day run. Yes,
And
ma'am.
and you just recently had a little girl,
I
did you not?
did. I've got a little daughter that's in the children's NICU unit right now. She's 8 days old as of today. So
Okay. Well, we wish her the best.
she's I thank you, sir. She's doing a lot better than she was 8 days ago. So
Well, we give you an excused pass for
yeah,
being tardy today.
yeah, exactly.
Rusty, while Holt is here, I'm not going to say I'm an expert by any means. I'm just going to kind of take a step back. And here recently, I've seen in the news that there are a lot of, and maybe this is something y'all want to discuss or not. I mean, I'll leave it up to y'all, but there's been a lot of politics and division on farming for ducks. Certain comments being made, certain things being done about techniques. Um, some people saying things I don't think that are valid, and others I don't think that are educated in what they say. I see it from a different perspective than y'all do. Y'all recall what I'm bringing up here?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know where you're going with it, Robert.
absolutely. We're talking about Senator Kenny, which I like immensely, uh, and the standing corn issue that a lot of people are, um, jumping on that bandwagon, so to speak, of the standing corn, and it somehow halting the ducks from going south, and um, but I'd like to first say that I feel for those guys. I know what you're talking about. I know where you're coming from as far as you're not seeing the ducks, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating for a lot of people. That's for sure. And but I have quite a bit of data, but you know, um, I'll let Holt say what he wants to say about it, but that's kind of my introduction. I mean, I feel for these guys, so anything that I were to say, I mean, that I understand where they're coming from. It's frustrating not to have the ducks, especially people that have donated Ducks Unlimited and Delta Waterfowl their whole lives and tried to give back. There's just a lot of things that are outside our control, and um, but I certainly don't agree with the standing corn as stopping ducks from going south or standing crops in general. But yeah, and I'm going to go into that at least from my background as well. But a lot of it is anecdotal evidence, but pretty much I feel like it's science based. I'm a data driven guy. I use data to formulate my opinions, uh, and I'll have data to back up most everything I'm saying. But it's a broad brush. Is what I'm the discussions I'm going to have is not why are you not killing more ducks in your particular duck blind, because there could be a variety of local factors that are affecting that. That's not really the issue here. They're basically asking why aren't the ducks coming as far south as they used to be, and I have a real easy couple data points there to explain why. And standing corn's really not it. Oh, what do you got?
Yeah, no, Rusty, I completely agree. I feel like the standing corn is kind of the scapegoat. The guys that aren't shooting them, aren't seeing them. Hey, let's what can we point our fingers at? Um, I think I personally don't grow corn on the farms I manage. Not saying we don't grow corn, but as a waterfowl tactic, we don't grow corn. Reason being, the ground that I do plant for duck food, it's wet. It's not good corn ground. It's moist soil ground. I can grow a great crop of moist soil or millet, and it works for us. Not knocking corn. Corn's got its place out there. I just feel like these guys that are maybe in Louisiana, in the South that see all these other guys growing corn, that's the easiest thing to throw. Hey, they got flooded corn. We don't. That's short stopping them. I don't believe any of that. Corn has its place on the landscape. There are times, Rusty, what did we just go through? A hard freeze. Guess what? Ducks were hitting.
Yep.
If you had flooded corn, ducks were hitting it because they needed it. Is it short stopping them? No, I don't believe that. There's bigger things involved. Weather, being one of them. Our
Yep.
winters are coming later in the year, and they're not as long lasting like they've been in years past. If you've got the thing about corn is it costs a lot of money to grow a great corn crop, whether you're going to cut it and harvest it or you're going to leave it for the ducks. It's an expensive crop to grow it right.
Yeah,
It's got a
about
lot of
$800 an
inputs.
acre right now.
Yeah, there you go. Not to mention if you got to spray it, if you got bugs and all the other things that come along with it. From my management perspective, I can get away with growing millet or growing my moist soil a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper on my boss man.
Sure.
Um, but the guys that can do it, props to them. I do not think it short stops. Like I said, I think it's kind of the scapegoat. Hey, they've got flooded corn. They're stopping them. You know,
Well,
unfortunately
I
now,
think it's more like it's not necessarily a scapegoat. It's the only thing that they can control, and that
sure,
they might have some control over, that might have some impact, and they're just frustrated, and they're stretching out. Like if it's a weather issue, they're what can they do about the weather? Well, they can't. There's nothing they can
right,
do about it.
right.
So what can they do about the duck population? Not much there. You can donate, but the two things that are primarily the issue with lower duck numbers flying south, and there's no question. I don't question that at all. But it's basically two things. The number one thing is the duck population. If we had a breeding population of 12 million mallards, this wouldn't even be a discussion. Right now we're somewhere around 6.5 to 7 million ducks. Ducks Unlimited has a chart that they talking about the breeding surveys, and we've had a drastic drop off in numbers of ducks since 2010. I think somewhere around 2010, 2012, there was around 50 million, and we're down to 33 million breeding population of ducks. And there's numerous reasons for that. That probably, in my opinion, is the number one reason you're seeing less ducks, south of Memphis, so to speak. The second reason is that we've had multiple years, historic years of warm Decembers. 23 and 24 both. The December of 2023 and December of 2024 were the warmest on record. 2023, I want to say Minneapolis, Iowa, the Dakotas, Wisconsin, basically everything in the north of the Mississippi Flyway. It was the hottest December on record in 130 years. That's December of 2023. There's no reason for a duck to come south if all the water is open in Minnesota and there's no snow. Normally, by Christmas, you have a foot of snow everywhere, covering all the food on dry land, and the water's frozen solid everywhere. Christmas Eve of 2023, Minneapolis, Minnesota was at 55 degrees. It was a record, and that's unheard of. All right. And in 2024, you had every providence in the prairie pothole region and all really on either side of it. December was the hottest on record since 1970 for all those providences. And so you're working on we're going on the third year here where we had a cooler December, but we didn't have a lot of rainfall, certainly didn't have any up and down the Mississippi flyway, at least from Tennessee north. I think Mississippi had more rains, but our Mississippi River is dry. It's the driest that I've seen in the January in over 20 years. We normally pump out of the Mississippi River, and we have not been able to do that all duck season. It's normally at 18, 19 feet and at my local gauge, and it's at negative numbers right now. So, but anyway, the duck population is a big thing, and then these warmer Decembers combined, and then you get all these back to back. That's when people start crying about lower duck numbers, and we're not seeing them, and let's find something to blame. But I can promise you it's not standing corn. And I mean, you only got a handful of guys doing what we're able to do here with corn across the whole flyway. I mean, I'd say the average cornfield in a duck hole is, 2 to 4 acres, being the average size. Again, you got wetter areas like he's talking about, and but corn, I plant a lot of corn on the island, but and the reason I do that is because it was I noticed the very first year I planted 50% rice, 50% corn, and I noticed the ducks would fill up the cornfield before they would fill up the rice field when they were coming in to feed or roost, which the majority of them would always come in the evening. You'd have some that you could shoot your limit during all day long, but you just the majority of them would come in at night and feed. And this is undisturbed. Like we didn't hunt it. Whole day. You weren't here when we were discussing that earlier, but we've never hunted this property more than 6 days the entire duck season, with the exception of this year. During the regular duck season, we did some juvenile hunts, but 6 to 7 days prior to this year, and this year we hunted 10 of the last 14 or so days, 10 of the last 2 weeks, and we allowed these ducks to imprint on here for years. It took sacrifice, money, but now I've got ducks thinking about this place when they leave, the north and come south. But you're just not going to have ducks travel all the way to Louisiana. When Tony Vandermoor drained his farm several weeks ago, it was 65 degrees there that day in northern Missouri. And it goes back to what you're saying, is that we'll have some cold snaps and we'll have some warm snaps. It's the warm Decembers are becoming more frequent than ever before. And, like it or not, the North America has been warming up. I don't think it's human caused by any stretch of the means. I'm not one of these, environmental freak shows that think that we're behind everything. And, but 10,000 years ago, there was an ice age, and we've been warming up ever since. If you go to Canada, you can see there, talk to the people there about how warm it's been, especially the older guys in the last 20 to 30 years versus prior to that. And they'll tell you, I mean, one of the main reasons our snow goose population is out of control is because the tundra where they nest, which is further north, has melted and exposed more water and created more nesting habitat. And with more nesting habitat, their population has exploded to a point where when I was a kid, we never saw snow geese outside of the Delta in West Tennessee. When I mean West Tennessee, I mean, if you were a county joining the Mississippi River, yeah, you saw them then. but nothing. Like, we got them going all the way to Tennessee River. I mean, it's landing in our backyards. We never. I didn't even know what a snow goose looked like in 1995.
I've even seen them way over here in
Oh,
East
yeah.
Alabama.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but that's what happens, and that's when you create good nesting habitat, you can actually have too many. And to go back to the duck population and a quick, what can we do about it? Um, we being individuals, Delta Waterfowl, Ducks Unlimited, a huge number of the projects that DU has done and has been from Memphis south. And there's nothing wrong with that. But at this point, the be all end all is in the prairie pothole region, and where these ducks are breeding.
I agree.
Without question, there would not be any comments about flooded corn and ducks not coming south all the way. If again we had 12 million breeding mallards, we're at half that, roughly, just slightly over half. Those potholes, some of them are gone. They're just, they filled in, they tile drain. And I'm a private lands guy. I absolutely believe you should have the right to do what you want to on your own property. I feel like the government, we've gotten away from programs like the WRP program and the CRP program, where we paid these guys to not farm these areas, and we've had multiple droughts. Again, which is on a DU chart that I sent you guys earlier, that 22, 23, terrible droughts up in the prairie pothole region in the United States, but also up into Canada. These guys were able to farm it. And it's fertile ground. You can't really blame them for farming, but man, 30 years ago, we didn't have spray booms that would reach 160 feet either. Now these potholes are 5 to 10 acres in size. Most people wouldn't know that, but they're fairly small. They're not perfectly round. They all kinds of shapes, and you can hang a spray boom over that thing 75 feet now, and drive around it. Even if you were to, that's what I would call a burn down. That's what typically you would have as a burn down in crops. Burn it down, get ready to plant it. Even if we have the rains in May that get the water up where they're unable to plant it, there's no grass there for these guys, for the ducks to nest in. And so if we're going to change waterfowl, and I think we're in a crisis at this point, we need to start calling it like we did in the 80s, a crisis, late 80s, that we've got to get our focus back up there on the breeding, even in Canada. I mean, unfortunately, the majority of the prairie pothole region is in another country. It's in Canada. We don't have the best relationships with them right now from a governmental administration standpoint either, but that even went into Biden. But we've got to do more to protect these areas, and I'm all for my tax dollars going to pay these guys to not farm it. And I believe they will. I mean, I believe I know what it's like to try to make a dime farming. My dad farmed his entire life, outside his military career, but right now it's tough to make a dime in farming. So I'm not for going out there and just saying you can't do anything with this piece of property. I'm wanting to pay them to not get in those areas and let them not drain them and let them get back. Because there's nothing we can do about a drought. But when we do have the rains, we need the habitat there for the ducks to nest in, and we just don't have it like we used to. It's not even close. It's really not even close.
How are your thoughts on that whole?
I completely agree. I mean, I wish everybody pointing the finger about flooded corn would say, "Hey, let's talk about the prairie potholes. Let's put
Qualify.
let's put our thoughts on the breeding ground where it actually matters." So yeah,
Yep.
Rusty, I'm agreeing with you 100% on that. If the hen doesn't have the place to lay the eggs, we're not gonna have the ducks. Let's go back to
That's right.
the where it starts, and 100%. Like you said, man, it's drier years. These farmers are able to creep down a little bit farther down and spray that edge of of whatever water they've got up there. And I mean, that's where our ducks come from. Flooded corn, that is a minute
It's
worry. That's nothing.
even if we were affecting it, which I do think we are. I mean, it's such small potatoes. I'm talking less than a
Yep.
percent. You know,
Yep.
um, if we're really worried about ducks and the duck population, we've got to get back to focusing. Right now, I think 100% of our efforts has got to go to focusing on the breeding grounds, the prairie pothole
100%.
region. That's where at least 70, I think it's around 70 to 80% of the total mallard population
Yep.
are breeding and reproducing there, as well as other dabbling ducks. And I raise mallards. Most people don't know this. My first cousin raised mallards for the Peabody. I get all these rejects for the Peabody Hotel, the little guy in a tuxedo.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
walking down to the fountain, but I always say I get his rejects, but I've been raising mallards for years. And you know, you can, the population can seriously go up and down very fast. You get 2 years of bad breeding. I mean, again, I hope Mark, when this comes live, puts up that chart that I put. Go from 2010 to where we are now. We've lost, almost 20 million ducks. And that correlates directly to new farming practices, draining these holes, and new spray rigs that are bigger and wider, and new planters that are bigger and wider. And again, I don't blame them guys at all for trying to make a dollar anywhere they can. It's their property. They bought it and they pay taxes on it. But I think that they care about wildlife too. They're just, it's dry. I might as well farm it. Well, would you be okay if we paid you to not farm it? Because that's where I'd like my dollars to go to as far as new projects or new government programs, instead of putting all this daggum money to food stamps and whatnot with the USDA. We need to be getting it back to putting in riparian areas and so on back up north, and paying these guys to not farm this area, because there's a direct ecological and economic impact when we don't. And I don't know in my lifetime if we'll ever see numbers get back up to where they used to be. But um, I pray that we can. I just think that we have got to stop focusing on little issues, little things that somebody has an issue about. Stop fighting amongst ourselves. But let's band together and let's have one voice, and go up there and let's see if we can't figure out a way to protect these potholes where everybody benefits.
Right. Agreed.
What do you think are some things that could be done on that level hold to benefit it?
Well, I think Rusty, I mean, he everything he just said, I think, DU money, whether it be Delta money, Delta waterfowl money, Ducks Unlimited money, let's focus back on the potholes. Let's go back to where these hens are raising their broads, and that's where our ducks come from. And getting with the farmers, hey, we'll pay you X amount of money not to run that disc across that little wetland. Let's focus on those very important, crucial habitats, and make it a thing. Like Rusty said, I mean, we've had drier years. I farm. I get it. On a dry year, I'm gonna stick my disc a little bit further down in that wetland. Uh, I get it, but we need to focus on the crucial habitats. Flooded corn, flooded millet, flooded rice. That's not a crucial habitat. Do we need it? Yes, but the crucial habitats are the areas where these hens are making their nest, raising their young. That's where our ducks come from.
And that's where the money multiplier, where you can get the biggest bang for your buck, is
100%.
going to the potholes.
Yep.
That
I
without
agree.
question. I mean,
Yep.
if you ask somebody, what's the top three reasons, they'll give you top 3 reasons of why we're not seeing ducks. But they, you know, 80 to 95%, and I actually would put this number above 95% of the reason we're not seeing the ducks is because of the lack of breeding habitat that we used to have that we don't have anymore. That's 95% of our problem right there, and that's where 95% of our money and focus needs to be.
Yep, agreed. You know, and Rusty, I've seen over the last couple of years, I did see some young ducks that we killed this year, but I pay attention. I mean, I'm blessed. I shoot a lot of ducks every year. Last couple of years, I've noticed that we hadn't been killing that many young ducks, hatch year ducks is what I call them.
Right.
This year we did, but over the last couple of years, it's been mature ducks. Guess what? A mature duck's a lot. That old mature mallard duck's a lot harder to kill than that hatch year duck.
Yeah.
You know, and now, like I said, this year I did notice we did kill some young ducks. Um, but last 3 years, man, it's been a lot of mature ducks we've been killing. I hadn't been seeing my young ducks, and that's scary for a guy that, you know, makes his paycheck on managing waterfowl habitat and shooting ducks. You know, and that goes back to, you know, was it a great year, hatch year? You know, what were the prairie potholes looking like? You know, and it's been tough. It's the last
Yeah,
couple
they
years have
were
been tough
dry,
for a
man. The
old
last
hen.
3 years they've
Yeah,
been dry, and we
yeah,
had a little bit more rain in the spring of 2025,
yeah.
which increased you're able to give, you know, anecdotal evidence to that. I mean, I know we had a slightly wetter spring in the prairie pothole region, but again, you know, um, which will increase it, and but I don't think people understand. Like, you have one hen and she has an average of you know, 4 to 5, you know, little ducklings there. Well, 2 years in a row she don't nest. We've lost 10 ducks to 1. You know,
Wow.
it's that population can go up and down very fast, and I think we can, if we really focus our efforts up there and give it a 5 or 6 year period with the rains. I mean, God's gotta help us out there. You know, we can get that population back up, but it's gonna take a little luck. But we've got to strictly, because you're going to always have drought. There's always been droughts. We have that's it's more important now to manage the habitat, to make sure we have the proper habitat there on the years that we have the rains, so we can recover from those drought years. Um, that again, that's the biggest thing for me. And it's not even close. And dude, historically, we've never had ducks really in Tennessee till January. I mean, the refuge numbers show that. Refuge numbers December 1, December 15th, December 30th. They're constantly climbing, and they climax and always have climaxed in January. Um, with the warmer Decembers and whatnot, that's just getting later and later, and um, you know, if it doesn't freeze basically all the ground solid above Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and 98% of that being under snow, the ducks got no reason to come here, and we got so fewer of them. Um, it just, you know, there's nothing we can do about that. So we got to go back to doing what we can, and targeting the one thing that's affecting our ducks and our duck population the most, and that is what is happening in the prairie pothole region in Canada, and in um, and in the northern states where the ducks are nesting there.
All the of all the hunters, how many of I, I'm going to say probably it's a minority of hunters actually can afford the ability to farm for ducks without a return other than the wildlife benefit, correct?
Oh, I would say that, other than a few acres, you know, and they're not. I'd say those 4 acre, uh, 2 to 4 acre food plots aren't costing $800 an acre either. It would cost $800 an acre to farm it like a farmer farms it. You know, spraying it 3 times, and you know, buying the top yield seeds and getting it in, and maybe having to replant. But um, No, it's not something they can afford. The reason I did it is because I saw the ducks go into the corn more, and it was primarily due to cover. I noticed the eagles would not chase the ducks into the standing corn because they weren't, they weren't aware that that corn wouldn't break their wing off. I mean, they got a 6-foot wingspan. You're covering with 20-inch rows or 30-inch rows. You're covering a lot of corn. That eagle would not chase those ducks in there. And so it provided a lot of cover, some thermal cover. Um, as far as palpability goes, I think they like rice just as good as they like the corn. It's just the corn gave them a lot of cover, but again, it's expensive to put in. And I just wanted the most bang for the buck. I wish I could plant an oak tree, and next year it produce uh, a couple of tons of acorns for me. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen, and I've done what I can do, but I'm planting oak trees right now that whose shade I'll never sit under, and I'm thankful that people are doing that. But there's no way to immediately provide habitat for ducks without agriculture, and I'd hate to know where we would be without the agriculture at this point, because most people can't fathom how much wetlands we have drained in the United States. I mean, I sent a map down to you guys of Mississippi County, Arkansas in 1898. You can look at that map and you can see there's probably 10 to 15 lakes between Big Lake and going south back toward Memphis, down to Island 34 and south there. But basically from Big Lake east to the Mississippi down to Memphis, there's probably 50, 60,000 acres of wetland that absolutely no longer exist. Like, it's all crop, 100% crop. And, it's hard to make up for that kind of loss without agriculture. Agriculture is the reason we lost it. But that being said, without the grains being on the ground that we have out there right now, or on the stalk, or in the moist soil units, I'd hate to know where the duck population would be.
We say that, and respectfully, I say it in anything. Where will we be without the American farmer? So you have to
Yeah.
kind of you
Oh,
got to have
exactly.
find
Yeah.
the balance there.
Yeah,
It's
The
a
no, I mean,
balance there
double-edged sword.
between are we starving ourselves for recreation and vice versa. It's all about finding balance and all about having a conversation and working with each other and finding a middle ground. And sometimes, as we mentioned earlier, that middle ground is always interesting when it comes to blind politics.
Well, I really brought up the map to show to kind of have one slight bit of just some information, like for those people further south. If we were to restore all the wetlands just in Arkansas, forget anywhere else, the ducks would never have any reason to go any further south than Arkansas. It would be 100 times more food on the ground than we have ducks to eat. If we just, and that was just in this one area. And so again, we don't have that. We're not getting all that back. It honestly, the private landowners that are doing what they can, spending their own hard-earned dollar to put in waterfowl. Not all of them hunted every single day. I mean, again, there's a lot of people that are letting the ducks come in. They are getting benefit from it. They planted oak trees. They're doing moist soil units. They're doing what they can, and there's a lot of ducks that are benefiting from that that otherwise wouldn't. And so, we need to be thanking those guys for creating what habitat they have, because, I've been able to create a refuge that's helped the hunting around it. I mean, data shows anybody that hunts around a refuge, those are congregation areas for waterfowl. And it allows the waterfowl to and all the hunters around it benefit. I mean, I know a lot of people that do benefit from it. And so again, we need to thank those guys for taking the time and the money, because I don't know where we'd be without it, that's for sure.
Rusty, where do you see? What is your next? What are the next steps for Island 34? Where do you see your vision going? And are you looking at this as a legacy land that you're going to keep in your family, or are you looking to find another one and start over again? Where do you fit in the whole process of farming for ducks? And is it
Well, but
you more enjoy the fixing and preparation, or do you more enjoy the bounty and the hunting?
no, I actually enjoy the work and watching them. I'd be fine with not picking up another gun. I don't hate them like I used to, so to speak. That's the way we typically talk about it. But I thoroughly enjoy creating a habitat and watching them. We're going to sell Island 34. It wasn't my intention when I bought it, but circumstances just dictated that's the best route for us to go, and I'll definitely find another place to develop and make it all it can be. I just kind of always had that attitude of the Army, be all you can be, and I want to make a piece of property all it can be, and I certainly know that farming with ducks and these things can go hand in hand with each other. So my goal is to continue to create some habitat wherever I am, and that's what I get my kicks out of, being on the dozer, building levees, putting in pipes, water control structures, then watching it grow into what we have here. We've had millions of ducks come through here. And I'm proud of that. And we've helped a lot of them get back north healthy as well. So again, that's something that um, I'm thankful for.
Well, I can tell it's a passion of yours, Rusty, and I really thank you for joining us today and sharing us a little bit about yourself, about what you're doing at Island 34, and discussing with us, how farming for ducks has its ins and outs and ups and downs like all things in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe it can get cheaper and the farmers can make a little bit more money off that crop, and it won't cost me as much to put it in.
Well, for
Right.
what I'm hearing, it's definitely not you can't be about it the economics when you're chasing recreation with waterfowl.
No, that's you know, it's difficult for sure, but I mean, guys that have been like me, I mean, I grew up with a roof over my head, but I wasn't rich by any stretch of the means. I mean, we were average at best, in our and where I grew up, and I was fortunate enough to make some money, and I think a lot of guys in my position, um, have been fortunate and want to give back, and want to create that waterfowl habitat, and God's blessed us with the means to do it. Um, and I've been able to do it, and so have a lot of other people, and I thank the world for them and their contributions, because without them, I don't know where we'd be.
Well, Rusty, on behalf of everybody at Big Oak, I'd like to thank you for your time,
Absolutely,
and I'd
man.
also I'd
Enjoy it.
also like to say in closing that I commend you for the work and effort that you put in helping those that um, have lost the ability to enjoy a normal life that we take for granted so often.
Well, thank you for that, but it's really about them. They're the heroes. Um, we just, when I'm dead and gone, we just need to make sure that we're creating a legacy of people that want to give back to that community.
And that's what it's all about. Can you tell us what how can people help? Where could they reach out to? What organization do you see doing the most work for your goals and how they can affect and help these people?
Well, there's several good charities. I'll get back with Mark and have him put up those on the link. One of them I can call right off the bat is called Special Op Excursions. Um, those guys do a great job of taking active duty vets, um, special operations guys, tier one guys, who need a little stress reliever from time to time, especially after coming back off of things like capturing the Venezuela president and bringing him back to justice in the United States. It's those type guys that it's hard to get that break during the middle of it, during the middle of active duty. But our government's good enough to allow them time off to come, and we'll put their link up for sure. But they're a great organization. So again, they take they take active duty veterans or active duty military, I should say, on hunts. Just and not just any active duty, but the guys whose boots are on the ground, the special operations community, the Navy SEALs, the Rangers, the Delta Force, and so on. Um, um, our Night Stalkers, 160th, and so on. So anyway, those guys, the stress level is high, boy. It's high, and I've enjoyed taking those guys out several times this year, and um, look forward to a good turkey season.
Oh, me too. Me too. That's where my passion is. I can really get down in the ditches and talk to you about that. I'm kind of an alien. I know how to do the eating and then the shooting. I just don't know how to do all the preparation
I got you.
for ducks. But Rusty, thank you once again. If there's one thing you could leave us with, what would you advise other landowners in their quest to find a track similar to yours, other than Island 34? What would you tell them to do, looking for trying to replicate it? What's the first thing they should look for?
Well, one, you want something that is conducive to flooding. I mean, manually flooding, and then just start from there. Whether it's 10 acres or 50 acres, if you build it, they will come. Again, and if you're doing it for conservation, not just for hunting, let it set for a few years. Let the ducks imprint on that property. Let them start thinking about coming there, not being harassed, and then when you hunt it carefully. Don't hunt the same spot every day, or let it rest 4 days and hunt it 3, that type thing. You got to give the ducks the opportunity to get in there and not be harassed. The pressure on the ducks again is a big part of uh, why I think a lot of hunters are unsuccessful, in addition to the other things that we've talked about.
Yes, sir. Well, we appreciate you having us. Holt, can you give us your contact information if somebody wants to reach out to you looking for a track in Arkansas, Alabama, or
Absolutely.
soon Mississippi?
Absolutely. My number, you want my number?
Yeah, put you.
Cell's 256-312-6627. Like Robert said, I'm an agent in Alabama and Arkansas, specializing in waterfowl property in Arkansas. I'm around it every day. I'm on big tracks every day. I would love to help anybody out there that might be looking for a track, or just, hey, you got questions, call me. Let's talk. I can kind of walk you through it. Like you just said, Rusty, some properties are more inclined to flooding. I would grade them out as a little higher on the waterfowl properties, and then there's some ground out there, even in Arkansas, that's man, that's not a waterfowl property. That's a
Right.
high ground ridge with sandy soil. You steer away. But would love to help anybody that might be interested in finding something out there in Arkansas. So
Well, on behalf of Big Oak Land, thank you, Mr. Ruste Via. Mr. Ruste Via of Island 34. I know you've got a special thing going there, and I'm excited to see how things progress over the next year with it.
Thanks, Robert. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you so much, Rusty.
thank you, Rusty.